Yeah, that's something that Anne Sebba, you actually put in your book, Les Parisiennes. You talk a bit about the SOE. Tell us about that.
Reasons why I wanted to write this book, because I felt that the role of women simply hadn't been recognised in not only in D-Day, but certainly that was important because Churchill recognised in creating this special operations executive that you had to have women in Paris because Paris was a city without men at that point, or young men of fighting age. So 39 women were sent to France and most of them lost their lives, and they had numerous roles. They weren't really spies. They were bolstering the resistance. They were wireless operators. And they really were crucial to telling the French population there's going to be an Allied invasion. We don't quite know when it'll be, but be prepared. They also passed information back to England. And many of these women were originally Parisiennes, and they came to England for training, and then either they were dropped in special drop zones or they parachuted, and they were incredibly brave, and many of them had rudimentary training. There were women who we know about, like Violette Szabo, but there were lots of women who really haven't had their due, and it's about time they did. And there were some women who also laid explosives on railway lines, which was critical in the lead up to D-Day. And as Julie was saying, one of the reasons why they haven't been recognised is because unless they formally joined a resistance group, they probably weren't rewarded or given awards after the war, because awards were given to people who'd been fighting in combat, combattant being a key word, so they needed to wield weapons, and probably women didn't have access to weapons unless they were formally part of a resistance group. Now, some of them did. Some of them were able to leave young children or leave their parents and formally join a resistance group, and maybe they were given their due after the war. But there were so many women who did all sorts of incredible things, like delivering tract or helping evading airmen or hiding resistors on the run or hiding weapons, but they probably weren't rewarded after the war. And being women, perhaps they just wanted to get on with their lives and establish some normalcy, so they didn't fight for recognition. And yet, cumulatively, if you put together what all these women did, yes, certainly the 39 women of SOE French section were absolutely crucial, but there are hundreds of other women who didn't want to talk about this after the war. And now in their 90s, when I found many of them and interviewed them, actually they wanted their grandchildren to know. So it's been a real privilege and honour to talk to some of these women who played a critical part, but not necessarily wearing uniform, because of course that wasn't allowed, and not having been recognised formally by de Gaulle after the war.